Hey there, this is Clint Stewart, and you're watching ForGuitarPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching ForGuitarPlayersOnly.com. We're coming to you today on location from the Willis Music Superstore in Florence, Kentucky, with our special guest, Clint Stewart. Hey, Clint.
Hey, how you doing, man?
All right, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
It's been not that long since I've been aware of you and your playing. I discovered you recently pretty much through Tom Stanley of Stonefield, the New Zealand company. They are a bass-making company, and Tom is also into electronics and pedals. And in addition to the bass community, I know that Stonefield has started to capture the attention of some guitar players. Case in point, Clint Stewart.
There you go.
And I want to talk about that, but let's lead up to that by you telling us about your musical upbringing. I know you're originally from Pittsburgh, and you've lived in Florida for quite a long time. I have personal ties to both cities, so that's why I like you. But tell me about your initial exposure to music and how you became a guitar player.
Well, I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy, I haven't been in a lot of big situations with famous people, but I've been earning a living playing music since I was 14 years old. So I had an older brother who was a Led Zeppelin fan and Deep Purple and Alice Cooper. And my mom's a rock and roll fan. Back then especially, so that's what I cut my teeth on.
What a cool mom, huh?
I'm telling you, man. Alice is still her favorite singer. So that just got me interested in playing the guitar, man. And I mean, from the time I was 5, I wanted to play, and I kind of clinked around on them around the house. There was, an old guitar laying around that I'd pick up, and I started taking lessons when I was 10. So when I tell people I've been playing for 42 years, that starts when I was 10 years old. So I started taking lessons then, and started playing professionally when I was 14. Around town, local bars, VFWs, whatever. My parents would always go along usually.
Pittsburgh, I just occurred to me. George Benson is from Pittsburgh, isn't he?
That's right, he sure is, yeah.
And Tommy Flanagan, who wasn't a guitar player, but he was from Pittsburgh.
Yep, he sure was, yeah. So I think Art Blakey is also
I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure he is.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
well, who were your guitar heroes, your influences?
Well, growing up, I'd have to say Jimmy Page and Richie Blackmore, and later on Edward Van Halen, and that kind of changed into Eric Johnson and Steve Morris and all the guitar guys.
Did you know Steve is a lefty?
I did not know that, but here's something I've learned from teaching. When people would come to me that were left-handed, I would always try to get them to be right-handed. I would get them to learn right-handed, and I'll tell you why. When I was a kid, I'm right-handed. But when I played baseball, I batted left-handed. I could not bat right-handed.
I've heard of that.
I know that it's possible for people to do that. I think it's a mind thing. You're told from a young age that you're this or you're that, and you believe that, and that's what kind of gets stuck in your head. But I knew that it was possible to do that. But the other thing that I learned, I've been teaching for 30 years, pretty successfully too, if I must throw that in there. So anyways, but the thing about it is, if you think about it really, as a musician, your fretting hand is really the one you really need to be the strongest. I mean, both hands really have to be of equal coordination. It's not like throwing a ball or kicking a ball. So I actually find it to be an advantage, I think, for someone who's left-handed to play righty, because their strong hand is actually, I think, doing the heavy work, which is doing the fretting and, probably the more intricate work, obviously, depending on your picking technique, and that's can be complex too.
So you're going to give Paul McCartney a call and see if you can get him to do it the right way?
Yeah, I think I'll let him. He's doing a pretty good job. But I think I saved a lot of people some money with trying to buy left-handed instruments. If you want to buy a Les Paul or a a nice Strat, it's hard to find left-handed ones. But you got to take what you can get.
Reason I mentioned that, I was at a NAMM show. Well, I had seen Steve Morris. As a matter of fact, I saw him with Eddie Van Halen a long time ago at a NAMM show.
Albert Lee too.
Yes, I think it might have been the most recent NAMM show. I was walking by and I saw Steve signing some autographs with his left hand, and that just got my attention.
Well, I know he's having problems with his right hand, his picking hands. Actually, if you notice, he had this apparatus. I don't know what it was, like a cloth thing. So, and if you watched him, any of the videos, or got to see him play there, his picking technique when he picks really quick has changed. He's using his whole arm now because he'd done something to his wrist. And it's kind of funny, there are guys who have really smooth techniques. If you look at Steve Vai, Eric Johnson, Paul Gilbert, these guys are really fast pickers, and their technique is very smooth and very flawless. But I always thought Steve looked like he was working hard, you know what I mean? And So maybe that took its toll. But I mean, obviously, he's one of my favorite guitar players ever, and a nice guy too. So
Yeah, I've had the privilege of meeting him a couple
and Eric
times.
Johnson's an awesome guy too.
Yeah,
so.
we interviewed Steve on For Guitar Players Only. Check it out, Steve Morse.
Steve is awesome, man. He's a cool dude, man.
Let's get back to you.
Sure.
Give us some highlights from your career. You mentioned you've been teaching a long time, and you moved down to Florida. I think you told me 1983 before we started here. So there's some stuff on YouTube. You're playing some of that.
That stuff's just stuff to get gigs around town. That's not. This is the funny thing because, like I said, I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy. I mean, I'm playing probably 5 to 6 days a week right now, and then I teach 40 students a week. So
you're in it full time.
Yeah, and most of what I'm doing has been cover songs. I just started kind of performing solo. So I do like an acoustic thing, and I use a lot of loop station, and I do a lot of improvising and guitar solo stuff that you don't see on those couple of videos that are on there. But I've had my years of practicing with the metronome, my 32nd notes and 16th note triplets and all that kind of stuff. So, I did a lot of building technique and studying theory. When you're teaching people, you learn a lot. And I've had students go on to Berkeley and Juilliard. I have a kid who's currently in the Manhattan School of Music, and I graduated from some pretty good places. And if you go to where I live, you'll see a lot of guys playing around town that I taught. And
it's gotta make you feel good.
It's kind of a little bit of a joke almost, because they're like, Clint's taught everyone around here, so it's kind of funny. So yeah, it's a good feeling. And one of my students was playing Dave LaRue for a while. He had a solo act he was doing around Central Florida. And actually, I have played with Beaver Felton a little bit myself. I'm sure you must know who Beaver is.
Yeah, well, you can't think of Beaver without thinking of Dave, or you can't think of Dave without thinking of Beaver.
So actually, he'd contacted my ex-wife not long ago, saying that he wanted to speak to me about starting a project. So who knows? So maybe I'll do something with him in the future. But mostly I'm playing like a solo thing. I kind of actually like that. I can go and play wherever a gig comes up, and it doesn't matter how far away or close it is or whatever. And, I don't have to, I do what I want. I practice as much as I want, play the material I want. And if I want to play a half-hour guitar solo, I play a half-hour guitar solo. I don't do that very often. But, that's kind of the advantage when you're doing your own thing. But so the last 5 years, I spent most of my time just earning a living. I'd gotten divorced around 5 years ago. So that kind of started that whole, got to get out there and make some extra money. And so that's when I really started doing the solo stuff. But I'm kind of to the point now to where I'm going to start focusing on more original kind of stuff and doing more promoting and probably recording some more, real videos and getting things headed in more of a artist direction.
Send them our way. We'll share them with these nice people here.
But I've spent like the last 5 years just kind of developing the tools that I want to put together in a solo act. So, and I think I've kind of got all those happening right now. So now it's just a matter of kind of putting it in together with some original material, of which I've done in the past as well. I've had some bands and recorded a couple things. My ex-wife and I used to have a duo and played together, and we've actually toured Norway a couple times. Wow. She's from Norway originally. So we got around a little bit, and I've done a little bit of playing here and there.
Let's talk a little more about Stonefield, the bass company that has captured the attention of at least one guitar player and probably more, but it's a particular pedal that you use, right?
Sure.
And what is that about?
It's this new pedal he's working on. It's based on the electronics. They're passive from his high-end bass series.
Is there a name for the pedal?
I don't think there's quite a name yet for it.
Oh, there's Tom.
Right.
No,
it's the electronics are featured in his M series basses, but and it's still in. He's still in.
Should we have a contest, Tom? Who can come up with a name for the pedal?
Yeah, we had some names earlier. So Tom and I have known each other for years, and actually it's kind of a funny thing because I actually remember the beginning of this whole deal.
We're talking about Tom with 2 M's, Stanley, the founder of Stonefield, originally from Florida. Well, I think he did a lot of his growing up in Florida, but he's lived in New Zealand for the last however many years.
15 or 20 maybe.
And he makes a great bass product.
He really does. And when I can pick up an instrument, put it in my hand, and enjoy it now, I'm a guitar player. I've been playing for 42 years. I've played some bass, and I've, know enough about it to teach some, beginner level stuff. But if I pick up an instrument and start playing it, and I enjoy playing it, and I want to sit there and play it. Now, when I went to the NAMM show to help him out this year, I would pick his basses up and play them. And I enjoyed playing them. Like I was telling you earlier, but I could find a sound on that instrument, with that electronics because partly because I'm tone oriented anyways to begin with, and have some idea of how to use some circuitry to dial up a sound, but but I really enjoyed his instruments, and there's a lot of times I've picked up basses and started playing it, or even guitars. I'm like, ooh, I don't. This just doesn't feel good. It's not speaking to me. I'm not getting I'm not feeling it. There's something about when you pick up an instrument that speaks to you and you start playing it. It speaks back, it kind of bites back a little bit, you can feel it and you want to play it. And when I played his basses, I really felt that. And all of them, even the lower lines, they all have a sound to them and I think a great feel, and I think once he gets this, electronics setup he's working on tweaked and everything going, it'll probably be a good addition to most people's setup.
I'm sure it will be. From the basis to the electronics within the basis to his patented tuning system to now the external electronics.
And
there's no stopping him.
It's a funny thing how that all started, because I remember he told me he bought this I think it was a Korean-made bass. It was a cheap bass he bought somewhere, maybe a music store in New Zealand. And I remember he started tearing it apart. And this is Tom. When we used to be in bands together, back in the 80s, we'd have an important gig. I'd show up at his house to pick him up, and the bass is all over the place. He's completely rewired it and put 10 switches on it, but it always worked. So where there was a will, there was always a way with Tom. He always managed to get things firing on all cylinders.
What we used to say, when somebody would get uptight before the gig, we'd just say, hey, everything will be fine on Monday morning.
That's right.
What about the future, Clint? What else is in store? You have any other dragons you're looking to slay, or anything on that list of things you haven't gotten around to yet?
The most important thing right now is to try to build my solo thing into, I don't want to say more of a brand, but you know what I mean, into more of something, palatable as a artist. I approach everything I do as an artist. When I'm playing cover songs, I still kind of add my own, thing to them and do it my own way. So, but that's really the next thing, is to really focus on getting myself out there, with what I'm doing. And, my association here recently with Tom and Stonefield has kind of got me into, some new areas that, I would like to do some writing, some columns or something for somebody. Yeah. And I've talked to a few people about that and got some stuff started.
Good.
So, that's a direction I wouldn't mind going in. And, and giving Tom a hand with his basses.
Yeah.
So
it's great that you've maintained that friendship after so many years.
It's kind of a funny thing. We always had the same thinking. We always kind of had the thinking that anything was possible. And I think in the old days we were just too young to know how to focus it. You know what I mean? To really have probably gotten a little bit more success. It's kind of one of those things, like, I know how to practice. I know how to get good, to get a part down, but it's kind of a funny thing, becoming famous or getting in that thing. It's like I can never quite see the path there, but I think I'm starting to see it more now. I think getting a little more older and getting a little more mature, and I think, like I said, I've built the skill set now to do something a little larger, on a bigger scale. And now it's, like I said, just a matter of picking a little bit more of a focused direction and doing my thing. So.
What would you be if you were not a guitar player? Something outside of music.
That's really hard to say, because music chooses you. You don't really have a decision in it. So as a kid, I wanted to be a racer. I wanted to be Richard Petty. Sure. And but I played a lot of sports. I wanted to be a baseball player when I was a kid. I was a pretty good baseball player. But like I said, I just couldn't imagine not being a musician, through the good times, the bad times. The guitar is always there. Life changes, and but that time I'm picking up that guitar, man, and whether it's in a little bar around town where I'm playing or where it's at, man, to me it's serious business. You know what I mean? I approach playing at, the little pub down the road as I would playing in a stadium or whatever, a big auditorium. It's the same to me. I want to present the same product, and I get something out of playing. You know what I mean? I enjoy doing it, whether there's one person there or if there's 1,000. I get something from it. And when I've had students say to me, "Oh, I'm thinking about going to Berkeley, or I'm thinking about going here. I'm not sure. Don't go." If you're not sure, don't go, because you're not committed. You know what I mean? And you know when you want to do it. There's no other choice, So
A good note to end on. Well, please keep us posted on all of those projects and the solo stuff and whatever else you end up doing, whether it's on your own or with Tom Stanley, Stonefield, anything. Never know.
You never know, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for sharing a few minutes with us and enlightening us on all that good stuff.
Awesome, man.
On location with our good friend Clint Stewart at the Willis Music Superstore, Florence, Kentucky. I'm John Liebman. You're watching for GuitarPlayersOnly.com.